All right, so let's talk a little bit about a serious subject, something I've covered, I'd say about a year ago in the past. And that is, how are we going to treat our neighbors during let's say a financial collapse or shit hit the fan situation. I'm talking a real shit hit the fan situation. A situation that affects everybody's ability to get health care, food, and water. Now, we're all living in neighborhoods, most of us are. And we have neighbors, most of us do. Some of these neighbors, we went over to their home, shared a beer, shared a dinner perhaps. Perhaps you've had them in your home, shared a beer, shared a barbecue. Perhaps you brought up prepping. Perhaps you brought up silver stacking. They kind of scoffed at the idea. Some of them said, yes, a good idea, but never got around to it. Some of them have children. Now, I want to paint a picture now. A few months go by after you've had that last barbecue. You guys are okay friends, more of acquaintance level, actually. Shit hit the fan situation occurs. Maybe the power grid goes down. More likely, it's going to be a financial collapse. They won't have any money. The food will be basically, the shelves will be unstocked in the supermarkets within 3 days. There'll be no food left. And that food that is available on the shelves, it's not worth risking your life to try to go out and get. These people, some of them know you're a prepper, some of them don't. Hey, Overtax, how you doing? Hey, listen, the family and I next door having a hard time. There's no food left in our shelves. The kids have not eaten in a day or two. We're almost out of water. Can you help us? Okay, what are you going to do now? Here is the situation. What are you going to do? You've prepped, but your finances only allowed you to prep for you, your wife, and your 2 children. Perhaps you only have 30 days worth of food for those 4 individuals, you, your wife, and 2 children. How is it going to affect you, your wife, and the 2 children if you give up some of your food? And what happens once you do give up some of your food and you start to run low for you, your wife, and your 2 kids? You're running out of food now because you've decided to help other people. It's a hard choice to make, and there is no right answer. You can go 2 ways, possibly 3 or 4 ways. You can give them some food and then cut them off when you notice your supplies are not going to last much longer. But then that puts you and your wife and your 2 children in a very awkward position, life-threatening position, because you won't be able to get more food. So you can help them and then cut them off. But it's very hard to cut somebody off once they're getting assistance. We all seen that before in public assistance, social programs. It's very hard to cut them off once they're getting it. Another way you can do is flat out lie when they come to your door. Hey, John, I'm sorry. We don't have anything. We ran out. I don't think that's going to play very well. They're going to see through it. Or another situation. There's many situations. Come knocking on your door, and you can flat out say no. The bottom line is they're going to go back home. They're going to look at their starving children. And no matter how good of a human being they used to be, they're not going to let their children starve. They'll take food out of your children's mouth and let them starve before they watch their own children die. There's a lot to think about. Do you turn away? Do you lie? Do you invent a story? Perhaps you can say, hey, I don't have no food any longer, but I know where to get food. I know where food is. And you can have food waiting a quarter of a mile away in the desert or something. That way they don't think it's affiliated with you. I don't know the true answer to this. But the fact of the matter is, what I do know is if you do help them, and then 2-3 days later you tell them no, they're going to go back home. And they're going to make a diabolical plan. Not only are they going to make a plan, they might also involve the other neighbors for assistance. There can be some hard decisions to make. The single mom down the street. Hey, overtaxed taxpayer, can you help us out? And she's going to have 2 children with her. And they're both going to look up at you, the little eyes, and it's going to break your heart. It's going to break your heart. You're going to have to make a decision. Either way, it's not going to turn out good. You can help them as long as you can. Or you can deny them. Either way, when you cut them off, whether it's from the beginning, right from the beginning, or it's 2 or 3 days later, either way, they're telling their neighbors where there is food. And that's at your house. That's why sometimes it's not worth educating people sometimes. I say sometimes. You can bring up the subject about prepping and storing food, but my advice is never let your neighbors know that you're stockpiling food. Never. Bring it up to them, feel the waters. You never know. One of your neighbors might start to prep, and you too can be allies during the shit hit the fan situation. No real answer, no right answer, but just a lot of thinking to do in preparations. How would you handle yourselves? And you would have to really think outside the box and think about every little variable that can happen. Now, granted, if you're single, you don't have a wife or 2 kids, perhaps you can just help them until your food runs out. And perhaps you then can go out and hunt and scavenge. But when you have 2 children and a wife their lives depend on you, that's a whole other thought process. What are you gonna do? Well, folks, only you can make your decision. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna clean a couple of more weapons. But this is how you actually prepare for a situation. Mental preparation, mental practice. Take care.